It was a Thursday night. My mom was working a late shift at the hospital, and my two brothers were away at college. For the time being, I had the house completely to myself. I had a couple of friends over. We watched a baseball game, had a few beers, and eventually they left through the back door. After they left, I went upstairs to the kitchen to put the remaining beers in the fridge and get ready for bed. I went to sleep shortly after. After lying there for a while, trying to actually fall asleep, I heard light footsteps coming up the stairs outside my bedroom. I assumed my mom was home. I heard her cough as she passed my bedroom door and entered the bathroom. A few moments later, she went back downstairs into the kitchen and started making a lot of noise. Cabinets opening, dishes clanking, the usual late-night sounds. I was way too lazy to get out of bed and ask her to keep it down, so I texted her instead, telling her to stop making so much noise. I put my phone back on my desk, rolled onto my side, and tried to get comfortable again. Then I heard the footsteps coming back upstairs, much faster this time. My bedroom door slowly opened. My mom stepped inside. The hallway light wasn't on, so I couldn't see her face clearly, but I could see her figure standing in the doorway, slightly slouched forward. Annoyed, I said, "Can you stop making so much damn noise?" She didn't respond. I sat up and said louder, "Mom?" That's when my phone vibrated on the desk. Since it was late, I instinctively checked it. The message was from my mom. It read, "I'm still at work." I dropped my phone onto the bed and looked back up at the doorway. The person standing there was not my mother. Even though panic flooded my body, I knew I had to think fast. I tried to play dumb, to act like I didn't realize someone had broken into the house. I said, "Mom, I need to get some sleep. Get out." The figure didn't move. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and texted my mom again, telling her there was someone inside the house, that I had mistaken them for her, and that she needed to call the police immediately. She replied with a single word, "Okay." A few seconds later, something broke the silence in my room. A woman's voice. It sounded crackly, rough, strained. She kept repeating the same words over and over. "I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go." Her voice grew louder as I realized she was moving closer to my bed. I screamed, "Get back." As I fumbled for the lamp beside me, the light snapped on. Standing inches away was an old woman. Her hair was thin, white, and wiry. Her face was deeply wrinkled. Her hands were stretched toward me as she slowly advanced, repeating again and again, "I don't know where to go." I screamed for her to get away as it looked like she was about to attack me. I jumped off the bed, ran out of the room, and slammed the door shut behind me. Seconds later, she began trying to force it open. I threw my entire weight against the door to keep it closed. She started screaming, "I need to get out." She banged violently against the door over and over. She didn't stop. Minutes felt like hours. My mom kept calling my phone, but I couldn't let go of the door to answer it. It wasn't until I heard loud knocking at the front door that I finally moved. "Police!" I ran from my room toward them. The old woman immediately chased after me. As I opened the front door and screamed for the officers to stop her, they rushed forward and pinned her against the wall. She was handcuffed and placed into the back of a police car. I told them everything that had happened. Based on her behavior and what I described, they told me she would need to be identified and evaluated to determine if she was mentally ill. Later, I found out that she was. After the police left, my mom and I realized what had happened. When my friends left earlier that night, they had gone out through the back door. I had forgotten to lock it. That was how she had simply walked into my house. Even now, years later, the experience has scarred me. Anytime I hear a noise in my room while trying to sleep, I have to look up and make sure someone isn't standing in the doorway. Freshman year of high school, 2007, gym class, last period of the day. We had a substitute gym teacher. It was one of the stormiest days of the year. He was an older man, not elderly, but gray-haired, maybe 55, 60 at most. When he took attendance and passed by my name, he did a double take at me. I remember feeling uncomfortable, not to flatter myself, but I always knew I looked older than my age. I had been told many times that I didn't look like a freshman. The substitute told us to get into our volleyball teams. Then he disappeared down the hallway by the locker rooms. 40 minutes passed, the period ended. It was time to get changed and go home. When I went into the locker room, my locker wouldn't open. For some reason, the lock wouldn't turn. I tried my combination again, and again, and again. Nothing. Eventually, I had to tell the substitute. I figured maybe the combination had just slipped my mind. He told me to give him a few minutes, and that he would get the list of locker combinations. I waited outside the office. When he finally came back, he was holding a book, open to a specific page. Without saying anything, he walked into the girls' locker room with me. I didn't expect that. The locker room was almost empty now. Only one girl was still inside, finishing changing. He walked over to my locker and tried the combination written on the paper. It didn't work. No matter how many times he tried, each time it failed, he would look at me and laugh. I forced myself to laugh too, just to be polite. That's when it started getting weird. He placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "We'll figure this out." He tried the combination again, his hand still resting on my shoulder. It didn't open. Then I felt it, his hand slowly sliding from my shoulder down to my lower back. I immediately pushed myself away and grabbed my bag. I told him I was late for my bus. He tried the combination one more time. This time, the locker opened. He smiled and walked away. I waited until I heard the locker room door shut. Then I quickly got changed. That's when the lights went out. The entire room went dark. I pulled my pants up, shoved everything into my locker, threw on my backpack, and started walking toward the back exit of the locker room, the one that led outside. I was terrified that he would be waiting for me. Something about him felt wrong, predatory. When I reached the end of the aisle, I stood at the intersection of 2 rows of lockers. To reach the exit, I had to turn left, but instinctively, I looked right first. There was only a small amount of light. It leaked in from a single rectangular window near the ceiling. It was just enough light for me to see him, peeking at me from around the wall of lockers. That's when I ran. I sprinted for the exit door. Behind me, I heard him say, "Wait, wait, wait. It's not what it looks like." I ran outside, into the rain, off the high school campus. I walked the rest of the way home, soaking wet, with nothing but time to think about what had happened. By the time I reached my house, it hit me. He had probably changed my locker combination, on purpose, just so he could be alone with me. As for what he might have been planning, when he shut off the lights, I never wanted to imagine it. I was too emotionally scared, and honestly, too embarrassed to tell anyone, not even my parents. It was something I kept to myself for years, because truthfully, I still don't feel comfortable telling people about it. I'm 23 years old and I still live at home with my parents. One afternoon, both of them were gone. I was outside in the front yard, shooting hoops by myself. At some point, I looked up at one of our upstairs windows, and that's when I saw her, a woman standing inside my house, watching me. She wasn't my mom, she wasn't my sister, she was a complete stranger. The moment she noticed me staring at her, she stepped away from the window. I ran inside immediately. I checked the upstairs, every bedroom, the bathroom, every closet, nothing. Then I checked the downstairs, the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, even the spare bedroom, still nothing. Finally, I went down into the basement. It was small. A couple couches, a bar, 2 closets, not many places for someone to hide. When I opened the last closet door, my heart was pounding. This was the final unchecked spot in the entire house. I ripped the door open fast, like tearing off a bandage. I lunged inside, just in case she was hiding there. But all I hit were coats and empty hangers. I was completely confused. I knew what I had seen. This wasn't something you imagine. I went back upstairs and screamed as loud as I could, telling whoever was in my house to get the hell out. I screamed so loud that my next-door neighbor came over. I told him everything, about the woman, about the window. He helped me search again. We found nothing. The only explanation was that she had slipped out the back door, the same door I'd left unlocked earlier. After he left, I locked every door in the house. I called my parents and told them the whole story. Nothing appeared stolen. That night, I checked the house one more time before going to bed. Sleep didn't come easily. My mind wouldn't stop racing. Seeing a stranger inside your home is not something you forget. Hours later, as I was finally drifting off, I heard movement beside me. I had a fan running, so the room wasn't silent. At first, I tried to ignore it. Then the sounds became human. I turned to my other side, and there she was, crawling out from underneath my bed. She slowly stood up, towering over me. I screamed louder than I ever had before. I jumped out of bed and tackled her to the floor. My hand was around her throat as I demanded to know who she was. That's when my doorbell rang. My neighbor again. I dragged the woman toward the front door as she clawed and fought me. I still have 2 scars on my right arm from her nails. My neighbor helped restrain her while I called the police. She screamed the entire time, cursing, threatening us. She looked completely deranged. When the police arrived, one officer recognized her immediately. They had dealt with her many times before. Her name was Karen. Watching her get placed into the back of the police car was strangely satisfying. That night, my mind still raced. I was terrified, but beneath the fear, there was an unsettling feeling I couldn't explain. Relief. It was a spring night, and I was home alone. I was on a FaceTime call with my friend Jordan, pacing back and forth in my bedroom. At one point, as I passed my window, I glanced outside, and that's when I saw him. A man standing in the street, completely still, facing my house, facing my window. I looked closer. He wasn't just standing there. He was staring directly up at me. I told Jordan what I was seeing and tried to show her through FaceTime. She said she couldn't see him and told me to call my mom and dad immediately. I hung up with her, but stood by the window for a few more seconds. The man didn't move. Then I stepped away, sat on my bed, and called my mom. I woke her up. It was around midnight. She told me to turn off my lights, close the blinds, and that he would probably go away. So I did exactly that. But after a few minutes, curiosity started eating at me. I lifted the blinds and looked outside again. The man was closer now, standing on the sidewalk directly in front of my house, still staring up at my window. That's when I called the police. The operator asked if he was holding any weapons. I said not that I could tell. She told me to ignore him for now and to call back if he didn't leave within 10 minutes or if he stepped onto my property. She also said a patrol car would pass by my house to scare him off. I hung up and crawled into bed. I called Jordan back and we stayed on FaceTime for about 5 minutes. She told me to check the window again. This time, the man was gone. I stood by the window with the blinds open, waiting for the police car. About 10 minutes later, I saw it pull up in front of my house. The spotlight scanned my yard and the neighboring properties. Then the car drove away. That's when I believed it was over. I finished my call with Jordan and went to bed. About 20 minutes passed. Then I heard a strange sound outside, a creaking, cracking noise. I got up and checked the window. Nothing. I went back to bed. A few minutes later, the sound came again. Louder this time. I looked toward the window from my bed and froze. There was a figure right outside my window. My bedroom was upstairs. Suddenly the noises made sense. He had been climbing up the side of my house. I ran to my other window and screamed for help, over and over, hoping my neighbors would hear. I called 911 again and begged them to send another unit immediately. The man tried to force himself through the opening in the window, but then he stopped. One of my neighbors was outside yelling something. When I looked back at the window, he was gone. My elderly neighbor later told me the man had jumped down and ran off down the street. The police arrived again. I gave them all the information I had. They said they would patrol the area all night. I didn't sleep at all, but I never saw that man again. I live in a 2-floor house with my sister. It's what they call a mother-daughter house. 2 kitchens, 2 separate living spaces. She lives downstairs. I live upstairs. My sister isn't home very often. Most nights she stays with her boyfriend who lives about 20 miles away. I'm 30 years old. I shouldn't be afraid of being alone, but sometimes I am, especially at night. That night, I was sitting alone in my living room watching a horror movie. My entire floor is an open layout, the kitchen, dining room, and living room all connected into one large space. The couch sits right in the center, which means while I watched the TV, my back was facing the darkness behind me. The only light in the room came from the screen. I kept glancing over my shoulder. After the movie ended, I brushed my teeth, turned off every light, and went to bed. I slept for about 2 hours. Then I woke up. It was around 1 a.m. At first, I didn't know why I was awake. And then I heard a voice downstairs. It sounded exactly like my sister. She wasn't outside. She was inside the house. I couldn't understand what she was saying at first. I was still half asleep. I assumed she must have come home unexpectedly, or maybe she was arguing with her boyfriend. I stepped into the dark hallway and turned on the lights. As I reached the stairs, I heard her again. This time, she was saying my name. I walked downstairs, calling back, "What is it?" I couldn't find the light switch in the foyer. Everything felt wrong, slow, unreal. I turned on the kitchen light. The bulbs flickered, slowly brightening the room. No one was there. Not my sister, not her boyfriend. Her bedroom was empty. I yelled her name once. Nothing answered. Then something fell inside her bedroom. I had just checked it. It was empty. I ran upstairs like a frightened child and locked myself in my room. I called her phone again and again. No answer. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me back to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my sister asking why I called her at 1 a.m. She wasn't home that night. She never was. When I checked her bedroom again, nothing had fallen. There was nothing on the floor. I tell myself I hallucinated it, because the alternative is far more terrifying. I'm a single guy in my mid-30s. This happened a few years ago, during a pretty depressing period of my life. I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 5 years, the woman I truly believed I would marry one day, the one I thought I'd start a family with. It's safe to say I was completely lost back then. The psychological damage from the breakup hit me harder than I expected. I spent entire weeks sulking, barely taking care of myself. I'd wake up, talk to no one, go to work, talk to no one, and come home just to lie in bed for the rest of the day. Weekends were even worse. I'd forget to eat. I wouldn't leave the house. I'd binge watch movie after movie, barely even realizing what I was watching. But enough of that sob story. I'm doing much better now. Still, I can't help but think about the life I could have had if things had gone differently. Anyway, it was a Saturday night. I was slumped on my couch, barely moving except to press play on another random movie. I couldn't even tell you what it was. Just another mindless action flick I'd forget about as soon as it ended. For context, my bedroom is on the second floor of my house. I have a couch and a TV in there, so I usually never watch TV anywhere else. At one point, I glanced down at my phone. It was a few minutes after 9 p.m. I remember that clearly because my mom was calling me for the 4th time that day. I didn't want to ignore her, but I let it ring anyway. I knew she meant well, but I couldn't bring myself to talk. I didn't want to hear the usual questions about whether I'd eaten or gone outside. Eventually, I backed out to the menu. I wasn't really in the mood for anything, but I clicked on some random horror movie I'd never heard of. One of those generic ones with a grainy thumbnail. I figured I'd half watch it until I fell asleep. About 20 minutes in, I realized the movie was even worse than I expected. The audio was a complete mess. Every time someone spoke, I had to turn the volume way up just to catch a word or two. Then the next sound effect would blast through the speakers and nearly rupture my eardrums. For some reason, though, I kept it on. I think I was just too lazy to change it again. That's when I started noticing something strange. There was this sharp metallic clang, like a pipe hitting concrete. It didn't match anything happening on screen. No one was holding metal, no warehouses, No reason for that sound to exist. And it wasn't timed with the scares either. It just kept happening. Every minute or so. Same sound, same volume, same pitch. It was almost too consistent. Between that and the awful audio mixing, I couldn't understand how this movie had even made it onto a streaming platform. Ironically, the poor quality made it harder to turn off. Partly because I enjoyed criticizing it, and partly because I wanted to see how something so bad would play out. About halfway through, I got up to use the bathroom, and for once I actually paused the movie. When I came back and sat down, I hovered over the play button. That's when I heard it again, that same sharp metallic clang. But this time, the movie was paused. I froze. The screen was still. No audio, no movement. The sound had been clear as day, and it came from somewhere inside the house. That's when it hit me. It had never been part of the movie. I stood completely still, listening, hoping I'd imagined it. Then, about 45 seconds later, clang. I didn't waste another second. I jumped up, grabbed a knife from my desk, and started moving room to room, checking every place someone could possibly be hiding. Every room was empty. No one was there. Nothing was out of place. But as I walked back up the stairs, heart still pounding, I heard it again. This time, quieter. That meant it was coming from my bedroom, which made no sense. I had been in there the entire time. That's when I realized something. I had a few windows open. It was spring. The weather had finally warmed up. I started thinking, maybe the sound wasn't coming from inside the house at all. Maybe it was coming from outside. That thought scared me even more. I pushed the curtain aside and looked into the backyard. And there it was. One of my deck chairs was sitting in the middle of the lawn, about 20 feet from the house. Standing next to it was a kid, a small kid. I couldn't make out his face in the dark, but his silhouette was unmistakable, way too small to be an adult. He was holding what looked like a PVC pipe. That explained the sound. The moment I looked out the window, he slammed the pipe against the chair. Clang. I stepped back immediately, my body filling with fear. I know it sounds stupid to be afraid of a kid, but what the hell was he doing outside my house? Had he been standing there for an hour? That realization made my stomach drop. I tried to calm myself. Maybe he was lost. Maybe he wandered off from a nearby house. I couldn't just stand there doing nothing. So I went downstairs toward the back door and turned on the porch light. As my hand touched the doorknob, I froze. Something felt wrong. If he was lost, why didn't he ring the doorbell? Why didn't he call out? And even if banging a pipe was his solution, why keep doing it for so long? My gut screamed at me not to open that door. I slowly backed away. Then I crept to a small window next to the door and tilted the blind just enough to see outside. And that's when I saw them. 2 men, dressed entirely in black, crouched below my back door, waiting, ready to ambush me the second I stepped outside. One of them suddenly looked up and locked eyes with me through the glass. I dropped the blinds and dialed 911. I barely made it upstairs before the banging started. They were trying to break in. I locked myself in the bathroom as the door downstairs crashed open. Footsteps echoed through the house. Someone climbed the stairs. The bathroom doorknob turned. Then a violent kick slammed into the door. I screamed that the police were on their way. Seconds later, I heard them run. A door slammed. Silence. The police arrived too late to catch anyone. They couldn't do much without cameras or descriptions. The only thing that made them take it seriously was the involvement of a child. They told me that meant this wasn't impulsive. It was planned, and that terrified me. I moved out not long after. Nothing like that has happened since. But I still think about it, especially that kid. I just hope, somehow, he's safe. I was home alone for an entire week when I was still a teenager. That almost never happened. My parents didn't go out much, but one of my mom's wealthy friends paid for them to go on a trip. I was an only child, so the house was completely mine. We lived in Newark, Ohio, in a place called Licking County. Yeah, that was actually the name. Our house sat on a quiet road where only a few cars passed each day. Behind it were thick woods, deep woods. We had a large deck overlooking them, a fish pond, and an above-ground swimming pool. This happened on a Thursday night in July of 2013. I remember because I had been texting friends about weekend plans earlier that day. That night, I was sitting alone on the deck, smoking weed, music playing through a speaker beside me. That's when it started. I thought I heard a voice coming from the woods. I turned the music down and listened. Nothing. So I turned the music back up. A few seconds later, I heard it again. This time, I shut the music off completely. The voice came from the trees, a man's voice, calm, distant. "Hey, over here." The woods were only about 20 or 30 yards away. I didn't think much of it at first. I assumed it was kids messing around, maybe playing a game in the dark. Then the voice spoke again. "Hey, over here, we need help." That's when my stomach tightened. The voice was too deep to be a kid's. And when someone says we need help, that gets your attention. I started to feel uneasy. Then the voice yelled again, "Straight in front of you, please, come help us." Now I knew it was directed at me. I hesitated, then called back, "Who is that?" The voice replied instantly, "We just need help. We're stuck in the woods." I asked what that meant. The voice only said, "Please, come here, straight in front of you." I stood up, walked down the deck stairs, and stepped onto the grass. As I moved toward the trees, I called out, "I'm coming, where are you?" The response came immediately, too immediately. "Right in front of you, I see you." I froze. Something felt wrong, deep in my gut. I asked, "Are you alone? Or with someone?" No answer. That's when I stopped walking. I slowly backed away toward the house. I didn't even want to turn my back on the woods. It finally hit me how suspicious the whole thing was. If they could see me, how were they stuck? When I reached the deck, the voice went silent. Completely. If it was real, they would have yelled again, at least asked where I was going. But they didn't. I went inside and locked every door. I sat on the couch for a while, still high, and trying to calm myself down. Then I heard the voice again. Closer, much closer. It wasn't coming from the woods anymore. It was in my backyard. I heard splashing water, from the pool or the pond. I rushed to the window. At first I saw nothing. Then the voice laughed and said, "I see you." I spotted him, at least one man, crouched behind the pool. I could only see his head, dark hair, medium length. I slammed the blinds shut. I hoped he'd lose interest, that he'd leave if I didn't react. But then, violent pounding exploded against the window. The glass shook. On the other side he screamed, "Help! Help me!" While laughing, I screamed back that the police were coming. Over and over, trying to sound crazier than him. His laughter slowly faded, until there was nothing. I sat on the couch, shaking, barely breathing. Eventually, the night went quiet. He never came back. But ever since that night, I've been extremely careful about who I open my door to.